Wherever you are, welcome to another of my takes on China. And many people are asking if China will boycott US goods. And the answer is no, definitely not. But let's explore why. The government here in China won't want people to boycott American goods. They will discourage it. And there are really three reasons why. First of all, the Chinese people don't have a problem with the US people. Honestly, there are many Americans here in China. They are not being discriminated against, at least not yet. Although I have seen one photo of a restaurant with a sign outside saying, if you're American, a 104% surcharge applies. It's a joke. It's mostly a joke. The reality is Chinese people like Americans. They respect America, and they think it's a shame that an orange man has subverted their country. But they are enjoying the spectacle and making fun of it. So please don't take social media jokes as the reality of the street in China. They aren't. The truth is, most Chinese people probably either don't realize how serious this is, or they assume the party's leadership will navigate them away from any storm. There's a great deal of trust in China of their government. Why wouldn't they be? The very thing that the US administration hates so much about China is that their peasants, as J.D. Vance calls them, have improved their livelihoods, and that their leadership will not kiss a diapered ass. I'm a white guy in China. I'm not well known outside of my own inner circle, but even here in the area where I live, people don't know where I come from. They've never asked. Yet not a single person since this all started has said, "Are you an American?" Chinese people don't care. They know the administration is doing this, and the people of America will suffer in the long term. Social media is upset, but not with the people. They know only 150 million Americans voted in the election, and they know that Trump got 50.2% of the votes. Therefore, 76 million people out of a population of 350, or about 21% of the population, voted for Trump. So isn't the fault of the ordinary Americans that Trump is in charge? I was in Guangzhou yesterday. I had dinner out in my local shopping mall yesterday evening. Not one person has even hinted that as a white person, I might be an American and therefore subject to any change of circumstances. It just isn't happening yet. And I think if it starts to happen, the Chinese government will discourage it by pointing out a few facts. One of those is the second reason. American goods in China that don't have a tariff are produced in China. American hotel and food chains in China use Chinese labor, Chinese products. They pay Chinese taxes. It won't be a good idea to boycott the Hilton Hotel or McDonald's, because that would affect Chinese workers and Chinese suppliers working with them. So the next and very important point is that most American businesses and business leaders are against this. The American Chamber of Commerce has spoken out against tariffs. The US Chamber of Commerce in Washington is threatening to sue Trump. The people who count in the business relationships are communicating their distaste of this strategy, and China already knows this. It's not businesses, it's not people. Tariffs really don't help anyone. American corporations have expressed confidence in China's legal mechanisms. They've invested many billions, if not trillions, into the Chinese communities, and they want to sell to Chinese customers, and Chinese customers like some, if not all, of their brands. KFC, for example, is hugely popular, as is Coca-Cola. These are products that are made by Chinese people in Chinese factories, using Chinese suppliers, and sold in Chinese shops. Even Apple's iPhones and iPads are still hugely popular, not just because they're good products, which they are, but because they're made here by Chinese workers and sold into the Chinese market by a corporation paying Chinese taxes, and a corporation that's invested billions into China. Now, we may not all like Apple. I certainly have my problems with them, but without them and many other American brands, China wouldn't be where it is today. China didn't take business from America. Americans and Europeans came to China for the very opportunities that are probably now going to keep them afloat. China doesn't want to hurt the American people. It wants to retain as much of its own economy as it can through these turbulent times. And those companies that are American and have invested in China are not the companies imposing these awful tariffs on anyone. So we need to separate the administration making these decisions from the companies that are attempting to stop them. Even BlackRock is against it. And the people. These crazy tariffs and a trade war help no one. So the third reason is direct foreign investment by US corporations. It's incredibly important to China's employment situation. Boycotting them would affect not American people. For sure, it might hurt the profitability of those corporations, but it will not help hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of people who have jobs and derive their incomes, and in some cases their accommodation and everything else in their life, through these corporations. Boycotts are never good, especially blanket boycotts, where the full underlying situation is not really explored. Investors in China come here because they know it's a stable, safe economy where the rule of law applies. Whatever we might read in media, if you follow all the world's biggest investors and corporations, they're in China. And then you'll realize something isn't adding up. People who know. People who read media are misinformed and don't. Boycotting products without exploring the background is the kind of thing Trump and his followers will do. I'm willing to bet very high stakes that China and its government will encourage the complete opposite of boycotts and push the Chinese people to understand why supporting American corporations who have invested in China is actually a great thing for China. So what's going to happen next? No one knows, but here's a prediction from me. China is not going to change its stance until Trump backs down. It's escalated as far as China wants it to go, and like an adult, China has now declared there's no point going further than 125% tariffs. That's no different to 2,000% tariffs. They mean nothing of normal value in normal chains are going to change. Walmart, Target, and all those stores which source about 80% of their goods from China are going to go without goods, starting with immediate effect. In fact, it's already started. It's in place now. Orders have been cancelled, held, or simply stalled without any instructions. Shipping is reducing considerably, and prices for shipping is already inflating. This means products going into the US from China will slow or stop. Decoupling, which I personally thought would either never happen or would be at least a decade away, is happening not in 10 years, but in 10 days. And the amazing thing is, one word from Trump, and all of this could stop. It could all be over. Products already in US ports are waiting now for importers to pay tariffs. China was never going to pay them, but the importers say, we don't want to pay either. So some products will stay in the port until the port seizes them and auctions them off for debt relief. Companies, particularly smaller importers, will and must declare bankruptcy to avoid paying these fees. Shelves will be empty. There already is panic buying. So stores are going to have to start to ration. Once this starts, protests will start. And when the police get involved, those protests turn violent. While all this is going on, remember, there's no shortage of anything at all in China because everything that was going to be exported now needs to find an alternative market. Maybe going cheaply to Africa or Central America at a loss, or going into the domestic market at reduced prices. And that will mean deflation, but a glut of products here, while Americans are protesting because their shelves will be empty. Trump must back down. He can and almost certainly will declare victory, but he must back down. If he doesn't, this hands China the greatest opportunity. When, not if, when there are riots, when the National Guard is gunning people down in the streets, when people are talking about insurrection, coup d'etat, and civil war, I think China might announce that it never wanted to see the administration do this to the American people and say, we're going to remove all tariffs on US goods into China. So if China, to avoid civil unrest in the USA, concedes, it won't be a win for Trump. He must then accept he's been beaten in a better game. Again, he can claim victory, but the entire world will know that China saved the American people. But we need to remember, even if China does this, it's up to America to remove import tariffs from China so that orders can flood back in. And China isn't going to allow orders to flood back in without huge concessions from the USA. US goods going into China will not help the American people when they have empty shelves there. It's US tariffs on Chinese goods that need to be removed, and only Trump can do that. If he chooses not to, there is an alternative scenario, but it really isn't what Americans want to think about. And that is, enough political, business and military leaders remove the administration and replace them with some kind of interim board of governors, that sort of thing that happens in what the US like to call banana republics. Now, we could talk about the consequences of that and what it would look like for hours, but the bottom line is that it would make for a very different America to the one that we see now. But that's another story. Honestly, no one knows what tomorrow will bring. My personal hope is that sanity prevails and Trump is either informed he's been wrong or he learns through circumstances that his actions are wrong and he backs down. I really hope, but I can't see it. I just want to be wrong today. Thanks once again for watching my take on China. Please don't forget like, share, and check your subscribe button. I will see you next time. Bye for now.